The house felt like a mausoleum at 9:30 p.m. on my 38th birthday. I sat in my cluttered garage workshop, surrounded by half-finished projects and the smell of motor oil, staring at the busted drone I'd been pretending to fix for the last hour. The smart home's automated lights had dimmed to evening mode throughout the house, but out here in my sanctuary of chaos, I preferred the harsh fluorescent bulb that buzzed overhead like an angry wasp. Before we dive deeper into this story, I have one small request. Please subscribe, drop a like, comment, and hit that hype button to boost this channel so more people can discover these incredible Reddit stories. Dana was out with the girls again. Third time this week, fourth time this month, but who's counting, right? I scrolled through my phone, looking at the pathetic collection of birthday messages. My boss had sent a generic happy birthday text at exactly 9 a.m., probably automated. My sister had called from Portland, but that was it. Not a single message from my wife of 12 years. Nothing says love like a wife who ghosts you on your birthday, I muttered to the empty garage. Our Houston suburb was the kind of place where everyone had perfectly manicured lawns and smart homes that could brew your coffee before your alarm went off. Dana loved it here. Loved the image, the status, the way our neighbors nodded approvingly at her luxury SUV in the driveway. Me? I was just the guy who paid the mortgage on our automated paradise. I opened our home security app, a habit I'd developed since Dana started her mysterious late nights. The little map showed her location as a pulsing blue dot downtown. Not at Margarita's where she claimed to be meeting her book club. Not at any of the usual spots she frequented with Alyssa, her gossipy best friend who always looked at me like I was something she'd scrape off her designer heels. The Vesper Grand Hotel. The Vesper Grand wasn't where you went for drinks with friends. It was where you went when you wanted privacy. Expensive privacy. I stared at the screen, watching that blue dot mock me from the most exclusive hotel in downtown Houston. My hands started shaking, not from fear, but from something darker. Something that felt like the moment right before you realize you're about to do something that will change everything. I grabbed my laptop and did what any structural engineer with too much time and a suspicious mind would do. I started digging. Hotel reservation systems aren't as secure as people think, especially when you know someone's full name, birthday, and the last 4 digits of their credit card number. Information that husbands tend to have. 20 minutes later, I was staring at a reservation for 2 at the Vesper Grand's penthouse suite. Dana Holbrook and Sean Laird. Room service for 2. Champagne, strawberries. Sean Laird. I knew that name. Dana had mentioned him exactly 3 times in the past 2 months. Just a guy from the flower market, she'd said. Helps me get better deals on arrangements. The same Sean whose black BMW I'd seen in our driveway 2 weeks ago when I came home early from work. Dana had been flustered, claimed he was just dropping off some exotic orchids for a wedding she was planning. The same Sean who, according to his social media profile that I was now stalking like a man possessed, drove expensive cars, wore expensive clothes, and had the kind of artificially white smile that screamed, "I steal other men's wives for fun." I sat back in my creaky desk chair and laughed. Actually laughed out loud in my empty garage. Not because anything was funny, but because the alternative was putting my fist through the drywall. "Happy birthday to me," I said to no one. Then I did something that would have made the old Miles, the trusting, naive Miles, who believed his wife when she said she was grabbing drinks with friends, absolutely horrified. I called the Vesper Grand. "Good evening, Vesper Grand Hotel. This is Marcus speaking." "Hi, Marcus. I'd like to send a bottle of champagne up to one of your guests. Room 2847. The name should be under Holbrook." "Of course, sir. What would you like the card to say?" I smiled in the harsh fluorescent light of my garage, surrounded by the tools and projects that Dana always called Miles's junk. "Happy birthday to me. Enjoy your final night married." There was a pause. Sir, are you sure about that message? Oh, I'm absolutely sure. After I hung up, I opened our banking app and did something else that would have horrified the old Miles. I moved half of our joint savings into my personal account. Money I'd earned, money I'd saved, money that was about to become very important in the coming divorce proceedings. Then I changed the security codes on our smart home system. My phone started buzzing almost immediately. Text after text from Donna. Miles, we need to talk. It's not what you think. Please don't do anything crazy. I can explain everything. I turned off my phone and went back to fixing my drone. For the first time in months, I felt like I had a purpose. Outside, I heard the distinctive purr of Dana's SUV pulling into our driveway. Then I heard her heels clicking frantically across the concrete as she rushed to the front door. The smart lock beeped once, twice, 3 times. Rejected. I watched through the garage window as my wife of 12 years stood on our front porch in the dress she'd bought for another man, frantically pressing buttons on a keypad that no longer recognized her codes. The old Miles would have felt sorry for her. The new Miles just smiled and went back to work. I woke up the next morning to 17 missed calls and 43 text messages. Dana had apparently spent the night at her sister's McMansion across town, because the alternative was a hotel, and after last night, hotels probably didn't feel like safe spaces anymore. The messages started desperate and evolved into angry, "Miles, please, let me explain. You're being ridiculous, nothing happened. Fine, be childish, but we need to talk like adults. I'm coming over at noon, be there." The last one, sent at 6:47 a.m., was different. "I know you're hurt. I'm sorry. But destroying our marriage over a misunderstanding isn't like you." Misunderstanding. That was rich. I made coffee in our smart kitchen, watching the automated systems Dana loved so much brew the perfect cup while I planned the perfect revenge. The house felt different without her constant chatter about flower arrangements and social media engagement. Peaceful, like a weight had been lifted. My phone rang. Alyssa March, Dana's best friend and partner in whatever web of lies had been spun around my marriage. "Miles? Thank God. Dana's a mess. She's been crying all night." "Good morning to you too, Alyssa." "This is serious, Miles. She made a mistake, but—" "A mistake?" I laughed, walking to my home office where I'd spent the morning printing out hotel receipts, credit card statements, and screenshots of text messages I'd recovered from our shared cloud storage. Booking a hotel room with another man is a mistake? Lying to me for months is a mistake? You don't understand the whole situation. Then enlighten me. There was a pause. When Alyssa spoke again, her voice had that careful tone people use when they're trying to manage someone they think might be dangerous. "Dana's been going through a rough patch. She felt disconnected from you, like you didn't see her anymore. Sean was just someone who listened. In a hotel room. Naked. It wasn't like that." But her voice cracked when she said it, and I knew. I knew that Alyssa had known all along, had probably encouraged it, had probably helped plan it. "Tell Dana I'll be at the boxing gym on Westheimer if she wants to talk. Like adults." I hung up and drove to Knockout Fitness, a strip mall gym that smelled like sweat and regret. The owner, Tommy Rodriguez, was an ex-Marine who'd been trying to teach me to box for the past year. Mostly, I just hit things until my hands hurt and my head cleared. "You look like hell," Tommy said when I walked in. "Feel worse." "Woman trouble?" "The worst kind." Tommy handed me gloves and pointed to the heavy bag. "Beat the shit out of that instead of doing something stupid." For an hour, I pounded leather and tried to figure out my next move. Dana thought she could manage this situation, thought she could spin some story about feeling disconnected and make me the bad guy for not being attentive enough, thought she could make me feel guilty for her betrayal. She was wrong. When I got home, Dana's SUV was in the driveway. She was sitting on our front porch, still wearing yesterday's dress, looking like a magazine model who'd had a rough night. Even devastated, she was beautiful. That's what made this hurt so much. The codes, Miles. Hello to you, too. Don't be cute. Give me the codes. I sat down next to her on the porch swing I'd installed last spring when we still pretended to be happy. Tell me about Sean. Her face went through a series of micro-expressions: surprise, fear, calculation, resignation. She was deciding how much truth she could get away with. He's a friend. Friends don't book hotel rooms together. We didn't. She stopped, took a breath, started over. It's complicated. Uncomplicated. Dana turned to face me, and I saw something in her eyes I'd never seen before. Not guilt, not shame, annoyance, like I was a problem she needed to solve rather than a husband she'd betrayed. You want the truth? Fine. Yes, I've been seeing Sean. Yes, we've been intimate. But it's not some sordid affair, Miles. It's about feeling alive again. Feeling alive? When's the last time you really looked at me? When's the last time we had a conversation about something other than your work projects or my business expenses? When's the last time you made me feel like a woman instead of a roommate? I stared at her, this beautiful stranger who'd been sharing my bed and spending my money while sleeping with another man. So this is my fault. It's both our fault. We stopped trying. I stopped trying to prevent you from cheating. You stopped trying to be a husband. She was crying now, but they weren't the tears of someone who was sorry. They were the tears of someone who was frustrated that her victim wasn't playing along with the script. I want a divorce, I said quietly. Miles, don't be dramatic. We can fix this. Counseling, a vacation, whatever you need. I need you to not have slept with another man in a hotel room on my birthday. She flinched like I'd slapped her. That's not. The timing wasn't intentional. But the affair was. Dana stood up, smoothing her dress with shaking hands. Fine. If that's how you want to play this, fine. But don't expect me to make it easy for you. I've put 12 years into this marriage, into this house, into this life. I'm not walking away with nothing because you can't handle a little adult complexity. She walked to her SUV, then turned back. The codes, Miles. Earn them. She drove away, tires squealing against the asphalt like a teenager having a tantrum. I went inside and called my lawyer. By Thursday, the whole neighborhood knew. Not because I'd told anyone, but because Dana had apparently decided that her best defense was a good offense. She'd spent the week playing the victim, telling anyone who'd listen that I was being controlling and paranoid, and that she was afraid to go home. The problem with lies is that they require maintenance, and Dana had never been good at details. Mrs. Patterson from next door cornered me while I was getting my mail. Miles, dear, Dana says you've been having some mental health issues. Are you getting help? What kind of issues? Well, she mentioned paranoid delusions, accusations. She's worried you might hurt yourself. I smiled. Did she mention the hotel room? Mrs. Patterson's face went blank. Hotel room? The Vesper Grand, Tuesday night, with her boyfriend. I don't... She didn't mention that part? Mrs. Patterson hurried back to her house without another word. That afternoon, I drove to Dana's flower shop downtown. Petals and Promises was her pride and joy, a boutique florist shop in a trendy district where wealthy women paid premium prices for arrangements they could have gotten at the grocery store for a tenth of the cost. The shop was beautiful, I had to admit. Dana had an eye for design, and she'd created something that looked like it belonged in a magazine. Lush greenery cascaded from hanging planters. Exotic flowers burst from carefully arranged displays, and the whole place smelled like expensive perfume and fresh earth. Dana was behind the counter, arranging white roses with the kind of intense focus she used to reserve for our conversations. She looked up when I walked in, and her face immediately shifted into what I'd started thinking of as her public mask. The sweet, slightly wounded expression she wore when she needed people to feel sorry for her. "Miles? What are you doing here?" "Buying flowers for my wife." "That's sweet. But we really need to talk privately." "I think we've done enough talking privately. I prefer witnesses now." There were 3 other customers in the shop, 2 middle-aged women browsing anniversary arrangements, and a younger guy who looked like he was panic-buying apology flowers. They were all pretending not to listen while obviously hanging on every word. "Miles, please." I walked to the counter and pulled out my phone. "I've been thinking about what you said, about feeling alive, about adult complexity." "Okay." So I did some research into adult complexity. I opened my photo gallery and turned the phone so she could see the screen. It was a screenshot of the hotel bill, itemized down to the champagne and strawberries. Dana's face went white. I also found this interesting. Another screenshot, text messages between Dana and Sean, recovered from our shared cloud storage. Messages that were definitely not about flower arrangements. "Miles, stop. Can't wait to feel you inside me again," I read aloud. "Miles is working late. Come over. Stop it." But I was just getting started. "He has no idea. Sometimes I think about you when he's touching me." The customers had stopped pretending not to listen. The younger guy was openly staring. One of the middle-aged women had her phone out, probably recording. "That's enough!" Dana lunged for my phone, but I stepped back. The hotel was perfect. I came so hard I forgot my own name. "Get out!" Dana was screaming now, her carefully constructed public mask completely shattered. Her face was red and blotchy, her perfect hair disheveled from trying to grab my phone. "These are private. We're private. Now they're evidence." I put my phone away and smiled at the customers, who were staring like they'd stumbled into the world's most uncomfortable reality show. "Sorry, folks. Just a little marital complexity." I walked toward the door, then stopped. "Oh, Dana, I'm filing for divorce tomorrow, and I'm keeping the house." The shop erupted behind me, Dana sobbing, customers murmuring, someone's phone camera clicking. I walked to my truck and drove home, feeling lighter than I had in months. That evening, Alyssa called. "What the hell is wrong with you?" "Good evening, Alyssa." "You humiliated her, in front of customers, in her own business." She humiliated herself when she started sleeping with Sean. She made a mistake. She made a choice, multiple choices, over several months. You're destroying her life. I was quiet for a moment, thinking about that, about Dana's life being destroyed, about the business she'd built, the reputation she'd cultivated, the image she'd worked so hard to maintain. "Good," I said finally. "Miles, this isn't like you. Maybe the old Miles is gone. The old Miles was a good man. The old Miles was a chump." I hung up and poured myself a scotch. Outside, the smart home's security lights illuminated our perfectly manicured lawn, our expensive cars, our suburban paradise built on lies and maintained by my paycheck. Tomorrow, I'd file the papers. Tomorrow, I'd start the legal process of untangling 12 years of shared life. Tomorrow, I'd begin the systematic destruction of everything Dana thought she could take from me. But tonight, I was going to sit in my garage workshop and fix my drone. And maybe, for the first time in months, I'd actually smile while I did it. The divorce papers were filed on Friday morning. By Friday afternoon, Dana had lawyered up with Mitchell and Associates, the kind of downtown firm that specialized in taking cheating wives and turning them into sympathetic victims. Her lawyer, a sharp-dressed woman named Patricia Mitchell, called my attorney with an opening offer that was insulting in its audacity. "She wants the house, half your retirement, spousal support, and 50% of your business assets," my lawyer, Jim Crawford, told me over the phone. "She's claiming emotional distress and mental cruelty." Mental cruelty? Apparently, your behavior at her flower shop constitutes psychological abuse. I laughed so hard I almost choked on my coffee. Jim, I have hotel receipts, text messages, and photographic evidence of her affair. What exactly is her legal strategy here? She's claiming the affair was a result of your emotional neglect and that your recent behavior shows a pattern of controlling and abusive conduct. Controlling and abusive. That's what she's claiming. I thought about Dana's tears on our front porch, her insistence that this was somehow my fault, her immediate pivot to playing the victim when confronted with evidence. Counteroffer, I said. She gets nothing. I keep the house, the business assets, and my retirement. She can have her car and her personal belongings. Miles, that's not realistic. Texas is a community property state. Then let's make it realistic. That weekend, I did something I'd been avoiding for months. I went through our shared digital life with the thoroughness of a forensic accountant. Cloud storage, social media accounts, email histories, credit card statements. What I found was worse than I'd imagined. The affair with Sean had been going on for 8 months. 8 months of hotel rooms, expensive dinners, gifts purchased with our joint credit card. But that wasn't the worst part. The worst part was Alyssa. Buried in Dana's email history, I found a conversation thread between Dana and Alyssa that went back almost a year. And as I read through months of messages, a picture emerged that made me freeze. This hadn't been spontaneous. It hadn't been a moment of weakness or a gradual drift. It had been planned, orchestrated, and encouraged by the woman I'd thought was Dana's friend. "You deserve better than Miles," Alyssa had written. "He takes you for granted." I don't know. Marriage is work, right? Marriage shouldn't be settling. Look at Sean. He sees you. Really sees you. It would be wrong. What's wrong is wasting your life with a man who doesn't appreciate what he has. Message after message, Alyssa had pushed, prodded, and manipulated Dana toward the affair. She'd suggested the hotel, recommended restaurants for their dates, even helped Dana shop for lingerie. But why? I kept digging, going back further in their message history until I found what I was looking for. A conversation from 3 years ago, right after Alyssa's divorce from her investment banker husband. "I can't believe Miles didn't even notice I got my hair done," Dana had written. "Miles is oblivious. Always has been. That's not fair. He's a good husband." Is he? Because I remember when he could have been more than that. My stomach dropped. "What do you mean?" "Nothing. Just, some men don't know a good thing when they see it." I remembered now. 3 years ago, right after Alyssa's divorce. She'd been vulnerable, drinking too much, showing up at our house at odd hours. One night, when Dana was visiting her sister, Alyssa had made a pass at me. Clumsy, desperate, fueled by wine and loneliness. I'd turned her down gently, driven her home, never mentioned it to Dana. I'd thought it was just a moment of weakness, a friend in pain making a mistake. I'd been wrong. Alyssa March had spent 3 years planning this revenge. 3 years slowly poisoning my wife against me. 3 years planting seeds of doubt and dissatisfaction. 3 years orchestrating the destruction of my marriage because I'd had the audacity to reject her drunken advance. I sat in my home office, surrounded by printed emails and bank statements, and felt something I'd never felt before. Not anger, not hurt. Something colder, something that felt like justice crystallizing in my chest. Dana was weak, easily manipulated, desperate for validation. But Alyssa? Alyssa was calculating, vindictive. She'd destroyed my marriage for sport. It was time to return the favor. I spent Sunday researching Alyssa March's life with the same thoroughness I'd applied to my own marriage. Social media profiles, business records, court documents from her divorce. What I found was a woman who'd built her entire post-divorce identity on being the sophisticated single woman who was too smart to settle. She worked as a marketing consultant for high-end businesses, trading on her connections and reputation in Houston's social scene. She lived in a trendy downtown loft, drove a leased BMW, and maintained a carefully curated Instagram presence that screamed success and independence. She was also leveraged to the hilt. The loft was mortgaged beyond its value, the BMW lease was behind on payments, and her business was surviving on credit and the goodwill of clients who didn't know how precarious her finances actually were. Alyssa March was one bad month away from losing everything. I smiled and started making phone calls. The confrontation came on a Tuesday evening at Skyline, the rooftop bar where Houston's social climbers went to see and be seen. Alyssa had organized what she called a support gathering for Dana, basically an opportunity for their social circle to rally around the poor, betrayed wife and vilify the controlling husband. I wasn't invited, of course, but I came anyway. The bar was exactly what you'd expect: overpriced cocktails, pretentious lighting, and a crowd of people who thought being seen in the right places made them interesting. I spotted Dana immediately, holding court at a corner table surrounded by sympathetic friends. She was wearing a black dress that managed to look both elegant and tragic, playing her role perfectly. Alyssa sat beside her, the loyal friend providing comfort and support. She'd chosen a red dress that probably cost more than most people's rent, her blonde hair perfectly styled, her makeup flawless. She looked like success incarnate. She had no idea what was coming. I walked to their table with the confidence of a man who'd spent the last week systematically destroying someone's life from the shadows. "Ladies, mind if I join you?" The conversation stopped. 6 women stared at me like I'd just crashed a funeral. "Miles," Dana's voice was carefully controlled. "This is a private gathering." "I'm sure it is, but I have something to share that I think everyone will find interesting." I pulled out a chair and sat down without waiting for permission. The other women, Dana's sister, a few neighbors, some friends from her business network, looked uncomfortable but curious. "You shouldn't be here," Alyssa said. Her voice was steady, but I caught the flicker of fear in her eyes. "Actually, I think this is exactly where I should be. See, I've learned some fascinating things about friendship lately." I placed a manila folder on the table. "For instance, did you know that real friends don't spend months manipulating you into destroying your marriage?" Dana frowned. "What are you talking about?" I opened the folder and pulled out printed emails, the conversation thread between Dana and Alyssa that documented months of manipulation and encouragement toward infidelity. "I'm talking about your best friend Alyssa here, who's been playing puppet master with your life for the better part of a year." "That's ridiculous," Alyssa said, but her voice had gone up an octave. "Is it?" I started reading from the emails. "You deserve better than Miles. He takes you for granted. What's wrong is wasting your life with a man who doesn't appreciate what he has. Sean sees you, really sees you." Dana's face had gone pale. "Where did you get these?" "Our shared cloud storage. The same place I found the hotel receipts and the credit card bills for all those expensive dinners with Sean." I looked around the table at the uncomfortable faces of women who'd come here to support their friend and were now witnessing something much more complicated. "But here's the really interesting part," I continued, pulling out another set of documents. "The reason behind all this helpful advice." I placed a printed screenshot on the table. A photo from Alyssa's social media from 3 years ago, taken at our house during one of her frequent visits after her divorce. 3 years ago, your best friend made a pass at me. When I turned her down, she decided to get revenge by destroying our marriage. The silence was deafening. "That's not—" Alyssa started, but I cut her off. 3 years of poisoning Dana against me. 3 years of planting seeds of doubt. 3 years of systematic manipulation, all because I had the audacity to remain faithful to my wife when she threw herself at me. Dana was staring at Alyssa with an expression I'd never seen before, a mixture of betrayal and dawning comprehension. "Alyssa?" Her voice was barely a whisper. "Dana, don't listen to him. He's trying to deflect from his own failures." "Am I?" I pulled out my phone and opened a recording app. Because I have a confession call from yesterday that suggests otherwise. I'd called Alyssa the previous afternoon, pretending to be broken and desperate, asking her to help me understand how things had gone so wrong. She'd been more than happy to explain in detail how she'd helped Dana find the courage to pursue happiness. I played 30 seconds of the recording, Alyssa's voice, clear and unmistakable, describing how she'd opened Dana's eyes to Sean's interest and encouraged her to explore her options. The women at the table sat in stunned silence. Dana stood up abruptly, her chair scraping against the floor. "You destroyed my marriage," she said to Alyssa. "You destroyed my life. I helped you find happiness. You manipulated me into cheating on my husband. You were miserable. I was married." The confrontation was escalating, voices rising, other patrons starting to stare. But I wasn't finished. "There's more," I said quietly. I placed the final document on the table, a copy of a business loan application Alyssa had filed 6 months ago, using Dana as a reference and claiming a much higher income than she actually made. "Your best friend has been using your friendship to prop up her failing business. The loan she got using your name as a reference. She defaulted on it last month." Dana stared at the document, then at Alyssa. "You used me." "Dana, I can explain. You used me to destroy my marriage and to commit fraud." Alyssa's carefully constructed facade finally cracked. "You think your marriage was so perfect? You think Miles was such a great husband? He's boring, Dana. He's small and boring, and he was never going to give you the life you deserved. That wasn't your choice to make. I was trying to help you. You were trying to hurt him." Dana turned to me, tears streaming down her face. "I'm sorry. God, Miles. I'm so sorry. I didn't know. I thought I was making my own choices." For a moment, I felt something that might have been forgiveness stirring in my chest. Dana had been manipulated, used, turned into a weapon against her own marriage by someone she trusted. But then I remembered the hotel room, the lies, the months of deception and betrayal, the way she'd tried to make me feel guilty for her infidelity. "I know," I said. "But you still made the choice to cheat. You still chose to lie to me for 8 months. You still chose to blame me for your betrayal." I stood up and looked around the table at the shocked faces of women who'd come here expecting to comfort a friend and instead witnessed the complete destruction of their social circle's most manipulative member. "Alyssa, by the way, your biggest client, Henderson Holdings? I had lunch with Tom Henderson yesterday, showed him some interesting financial documents. He's terminating your contract." Alyssa's face went white. "Your landlord got copies too. Turns out lying on loan applications is frowned upon in the business community." "You can't do this." "I already did." I picked up my folder and walked toward the elevator, leaving behind a table of women in various states of shock, betrayal, and dawning realization. As the elevator doors closed, I heard Dana screaming at Alyssa, her voice carrying across the rooftop bar like a siren of rage and heartbreak. The old Miles would have felt sorry for both of them. The new Miles just smiled and went home to his empty house, his quiet garage, and his perfectly functioning drone. 2 weeks later, the divorce was finalized. Dana got her car and her personal belongings. I kept everything else. Alyssa March filed for bankruptcy 3 months later and moved back to Oklahoma to live with her parents. Dana closed her flower shop and left Houston. I heard she moved to Austin, but I didn't really care. I kept the house, kept my business, and learned to appreciate the peace that comes with knowing exactly who you can trust, which is to say, nobody but yourself. But that's okay. I've got my workshop, my projects, and the hard-earned wisdom that comes from surviving betrayal and coming out stronger on the other side. Sometimes, when I'm working late in my garage, I think about that night at the Vesper Grand Hotel when Dana thought she was getting away with the perfect crime. I think about how she must have felt when that champagne bottle arrived with my message, and I smile, because the best revenge isn't getting mad, it's getting even, and then getting everything.